and Jeff Sessions met privately with the Russian ambassador at the Mayflower Hotel last April. NBC News reports that 5 current and former U.S. officials said they are aware of classified intelligence suggesting there was some sort of private encounter back then. Anyway, a Justice Department spokesperson says the Attorney General did not have any conversations with Russian officials at the Mayflower Hotel. Well, if such a meeting did take place, it would also appear to contradict the Attorney General's statement in March that he never discussed the campaign with Russian operatives. Here he is.
I never had meetings with Russian operatives or Russian intermediaries about the Trump campaign. And the idea that I was part of a, quote, continuing exchange of information during the campaign between Trump surrogates and intermediaries for the Russian government is totally false.
Totally false. I just love that assurance. Joining me right now is Ken Delaney, an intelligence reporter with NBC News. Michael Steele, former RNC, that's Republican National Committee chairman and an MSNBC political analyst. Bianca Golodriga, I got to get it right, and I got it. Golodriga is an anchor with Yahoo News, and Eli Stoggles, of course, is White House correspondent with the Wall Street Journal. Who can I start with? Ken, I have to get here, and I want to get to Eli, too. What do we make of this 3 strikes you're out problem with Jeff Sessions? Well, he said he didn't have 2 meetings, then he said he didn't have a 3rd meeting, and he never admits any of the meetings, but there were 3.
But the important thing is they flatly deny, on the record, the spokesperson for the Justice Department flatly denies that Jeff Sessions had a private meeting with Kislyak at this event. But at the same time, we've got current and former officials telling us there is some classified evidence to the contrary. And now we know that the Congress is investigating. The FBI is also interested in this meeting. This was a widely understood meeting. It was reported on at the time. NBC News was there. It was a foreign policy speech that Trump gave. Before the speech, there was a VIP reception. Kislyak and other ambassadors were there. Okay. Trump shook Kislyak's
Why is Trump giving a speech at a Russian-leaning think tank way back last March? I mean, this Russian thing. What is it about?
Well, I've been made to understand that that's one of the reasons the FBI is interested in this meeting. Was this the beginning of how the Russians tried to infiltrate the Trump campaign? Right around this time.
Who hooked him up with Dimitri Simes, the head of that institute? It was the former head of the Nixon. It used to be called the Nixon Center.
Unclear. But this is right around the time that the Democrats noticed that their network had been hacked, Chris, and people are very...
It goes back to the old pattern, Eli. Too much odd. I mean, if it was with the government of New Guinea, or there isn't the government of New Guinea, why so much Russian all through the campaign, right through the transition period, and now keep going now to the point where they're giving back those compounds now, freebies.
Yeah, that's
just giving
the big
them back.
Question, and the sort of constant, the pattern of collective amnesia that we continue to see, whether it's from Jeff Sessions or Jared Kushner, all these people who just seem to forget the meetings that they had with Russian officials until they're reported on in the press, and then they happen to have the epiphany and they remember that. I mean, they are sort of trying to tiptoe and tap dance around these questions. You heard in the clip when Sessions spoke, he said, I didn't have any meetings with any Russian officials about the Trump campaign. When he testified before the Senate committee, his confirmation hearings, what did he say? He said, I didn't have any meetings with the Russian officials. As a representative of the campaign, anything that I met with him was about Senate business. Okay. This wasn't about Senate business. We know that just based on the timing and who else was in the meeting. So it doesn't stand.
Well, some people think there's some places in the world you get money from now. Michael? You get money from Russia, you get it from China, and maybe Saudis. They have money. They have good trade balances and everything else, and you go to them. So is that because is Trump just used to dealing with Russians because that's where he got his capital?
Well, they fund the hotels. They fund the golf courses. So they have been a very important part of the funding stream, particularly for projects that apparently the Trump enterprises wanted to do overseas, in parts of Europe and certainly in Russia. So they've had that kind of connection for a while now. So all of a sudden, the president, and this was the problem of not understanding what you were transitioning out of. You're transitioning out of this business relationship into a political relationship where you have guys like the folks here on this panel sitting there going, so what are you two doing?
Well, a lot of people think he's adding to the business relationship. He's not getting rid of it. Anyway, let me go down. Russian leader Vladimir Putin appears to be softening his denial about Russia's role in the 2016 election. While he maintains there was no state role in the hacking that went on, he hinted yesterday that private hackers acting independently of the government, he said, could have carried out the attacks. Quote, if they are patriotically minded, they start making their contributions, which are right from their point of view, to the fight against those who say bad things about Russia. Let me go to Brianna on that. Bad things about, it sounds like an 8-year-old talking, but he's saying if somebody says bad things like Hillary Clinton, squash her. That's what it seems to be saying.
Right. How stunning, how in your face, how much more in your face could that have been? And if you think about it, what's most stunning about what he said today is he's gone further in a way of at least acknowledging this was a private citizen, a patriotic private citizen perhaps, that was hacking into the U.S. elections. He's gone further than the President of the United States has gone into acknowledging that Russia participated in hacking into the U.S. elections. Of course, Vladimir Putin then went on to sort of piggyback as to what Donald Trump had said early on, that it could also have been some 400-pound person in China or in the basement of their parents' home. And he said, well, who knows, with technology these days, they can just be blaming us, the Russians, but it could be coming from somewhere else. But that really did stand out to me, that he acknowledged to a further degree than the President of the United States did after being told by 17 intelligence agencies.
I think the president should pay close attention these days. I think he should stop making fun of people that weigh 400 pounds. Anyway, the Washington Post reports that the Trump administration is moving to return 2 diplomatic compounds to Russia, facilities that were seized in December to punish the Kremlin for interfering in our U.S. and our elections. Of course, it comes after the Russian embassy said this on Twitter last week. Russia is seeking to return its diplomatic property in U.S. ASAP. Otherwise, we will have to take countermeasures. Well, a senior communications advisor at the State Department told NBC News that the U.S. and Russia have reached no agreement. So, Ken, why are we giving back in this quid pro quo world we deal with in the Russians? You spank me, I spank you, I whack you, you whack me back. We're giving him 2 whacks in a row.
This would be a stunning repudiation to the Obama.
If a Democrat did this, they'd become simps.
Yeah.
You know,
so I spoke
to
to
pro-Russian.
I spoke to a senior official about what is going on here, and he said that despite all this Russia stuff, Donald Trump remains interested in providing a fig leaf to Russia, in improving relations with Russia. And we don't really understand what the foreign policy case is to do that.
It's not a fig leaf, it's that other thing. What's the thing when you're offering them up? Something
I mean, nothing's. They haven't changed their behavior on Ukraine.
What are we getting in return?
They're hacking the French
an olive branch. They're thinking about something else altogether.
All right.
But an olive branch. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't changed their behavior. There's no real foreign policy case. They're not really cooperating with us in counterterrorism or in Syria or anywhere else.
Well, why is he making nice? Why is he fluffing them? Why does he keep doing these nice things?
He believes fervently, I'm told, that this will be a good thing for the United States.
Okay. Well, why does he just come out and say, that's why I've been talking to these guys all since last year? Why does he just come out, look, I'm trying to crack this stupid second Cold War thing, Eli, I think that we got to find ways to break this deal.
It's baffling, though, because it is such an outlier to, I mean, everything else is America first. We watched him walk away from the climate change accord today that 190 nations signed on to. Last week at NATO, he's thumbing his nose at all these NATO allies, and yet with Russia, it's the opposite. And so it is surprising. And you can understand why, given what's going on and what the intelligence community believes about the election and the meddling in the election, given the investigations and the collusion, why all these things sort of paint this.
Okay, Brianna, I could make an argument. Maybe it's strained, but we've been fighting this Middle East thing since I was born. We're probably always going to be fighting it since the 40s, certainly. It's not just Israel. It's the issue of the Sunni versus the Shia, and it's the question of despotic regimes we don't like in Syria. And maybe a big deal from the top would work. I mean, that's what he's obviously trying to do, cut some deal to get the thing changed in Syria and Damascus. I mean, that's what he's trying to do, isn't it?
Well,
if he's not trying to do that, is it for money? What's the big secret here? What is it?
Newsflash, niet is your answer as to whether or not Russia is going to cooperate with us in resolving anything in the near term in the Middle East. I think this all goes back to sanctions. I think that the pressure that this president and this administration is facing right now makes it virtually impossible to lift sanctions. So what could they possibly be doing? To offer anything else in exchange for the sanctions. It plays right into the New York Times article from earlier last week that suggested that the administration officials wanted to issue an executive order lifting sanctions the first week in office. And it also sort of makes sense now if you look at Vladimir Putin's reaction when we expelled these diplomats from the U.S. Instead of reciprocating and expelling U.S. diplomats, what did Vladimir Putin do? Nothing. He welcomed diplomats and their children to a New Year's party in the Kremlin. All of this sort of suggesting that, you know what, in a few weeks we're going to have a new administration. There are going to be new rules that began to unravel, however, once Michael Flynn left the picture.
Okay, last question, Carter Page. It's one thing to say you didn't have a meeting, but then they come out and say the meeting was off the record. We all agreed it was off the record. How many times do you have and it's a conversation, by the way. So when's the last time you had a conversation with somebody just at a party or somewhere and say, by the way, none of us will remember this. This is a total secret. It would have to be an important thing.
Well, I'm a reporter, so I have conversations
the
like that
reporters
all the
are
time.
different, but no,
Right.
he's not a reporter. Carter Page is not a reporter, so it's not off the record. And you don't go to a bunch of people at a party and say, now let's agree we never talked about this. I mean, that'd be something pretty bad.
Well, I think part of
in other words, he's hiding something.
What this serves up for me is what my mama told me when I was a young boy. When you open your conversation with a lie, you're going to end it with a lie, because you're going to not remember the first lie you told.
Yeah.
And so that's how you wind up saying, oh, this never happened. Oh, and then like 15 minutes later agreeing, oh, yeah, it did happen. You don't know what the lie is. And the lie is growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger for the administration, and it's touching too many people to control it.
Do you know what it is?
I think that's what these gentlemen are trying to find out, right?
Is it a grand deal, or is it petty personal interest?
I think, I wouldn't be surprised to see it's a combination of both. I think it's the way the president has come to the table with Russia, based on his business relationships with them. That to him is more personal and more important than almost anything else.
Okay, so you give me Syria, I'll give you 3 hotels. It's like Monopoly, right? You think it's all mixed in? Because most people who are progressive, I know, think there's money involved. They think there's something there for him, Eli?
Well, that's a mystery that I think the investigators are trying to unravel, and we're trying to get pieces of it. But what we can see is the administration's eagerness to sweep this under the rug. You have not seen this White House say, we're confident we're going to let this investigation go forward. You see them frantically trying to sweep these things away, trying to divert attention to things like the leaks, to the unmasking of names. That's what they want to focus on. They do not appear like they have nothing to hide.
Why doesn't McGahn or somebody in the White House say, Mr. President, why don't you walk in the press room right now and tell it all, get it over with? This is killing your presidency.
How do you know he hasn't?
Well, I don't know. We haven't heard. It hasn't leaked out yet.
Well, he's apparently not in charge at the moment.
Maybe you know how you know he's still there. That's how I know he didn't do it. Because if you do that, I think you're gone. Anyway, Ken Delaney.
We know the opposite. He's told senior intelligence officials to say there was no collusion.
Well,
right? So
they say nothing. They say nothing. They're gagging everybody here. We'll see how he sits. He'll be watching Comey next week, and we'll be doing it. Ken Delaney and Eli Stokel, guy, Michael Steele, great. Brianna